You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Thursday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Time to rock out with episode 2 of your bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com. 2 things to remind you of here at the top of the show. First off, if you're not listening to the full network, man, you are missing out. Make sure wherever you're getting this, you upgrade to the full network. Doesn't cost you anything. And you get all the great content coming at you on the on-demand side. Then if you want even more in your life, you want additional podcast feed, you want exclusive shows like Options Oddities coming up tomorrow after Vol Views, you want, of course, awesome pro Q&As, and early access to other fun things, then theoptionsinsider.com/pro, the place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the hinterlands of Chicago, where we are joined once again by the uncleist of Mike's, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, always a pleasure to be here, especially when we are less than 70 points away from an all-time high in the S&P. It's getting close again, folks.
That's it. You just jinxed it. Right straight down from the moment you opened your mouth. That's it. That was
no way. I'm a continuation prophet. I'm not a reversal prophet. I'm a continuation prophet.
All you contrarians, get your fades in now. Puts have never been cheaper to buy, I'm going to say, than they are right now. Right now in the S&P 500. As we keep rolling out to the guy who did a quick touchdown here in Chicago for a little bit of hot panel action at FIA. Of course, to talk about the Flowmaster, Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back to the show. How was your sojourn to Chi-Town? Say that 5 times fast.
I had a great quick trip out to Chicago. I think I was there on the ground for about 24 hours, but I always like to check out the FIA conference, especially the expo, where we used to actually have a booth there in the olden days. So I like to see kind of what people are working on. A lot of international exchange participation. I'd never seen so many international exchanges at a conference. That was pretty interesting and great to see people. I'm sorry I missed you, but happy to be here today.
I was busy heckling from the rear. I actually solicited submissions for what I should heckle you for on social media. Got some interesting ones. Thankfully, I didn't yell all of them because they would have been not safe for work. The audience wants to get at you, Mr. Flowmaster. They're pretty fun. And also joining us on the Thursday show this week, making a repeat appearance, Mr. Scott Bauer from Prosper Trading Academy. Scott, welcome back to the Option Block, sir.
So happy to be here, Mark. Busy week. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and the markets are certainly interesting, aside from Tosaw just sticking a knife in them because they're done, as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, listeners, take a snapshot if you're listening live because this is it. This is the top. Tosaw has done it. He has killed the equity bull. Send your hate mail to Uncle Mike at St. Charles. Well, not his real email address, by the way, listeners. But yeah, a lot going on. Oh, breaking news. Gensler stepping down, not waiting for Trump to show him the door. That's enough to give Bitcoin yet another boost in the arm as it keeps racing seemingly inexorably at this point towards 100K. But we did have a little bit of a dust up leading into today. Of course, there's this ongoing, omnipresent geopolitical tension that seems to be stirring up vol a little bit out there in the markets. And then coming in, of course, after the bell last night, we had the markets earnings report, aka NVIDIA. And I just took a screenshot of all the different headlines that were coming at my inbox almost immediately after this. Amazing how people parse the same numbers in immediately different ways. Financial Times, revenue up, but growth slows. Then Investopedia, data center revenue record high. People writing in, NVIDIA smashes fourth quarter. Then the street says stock slides and Outlook clouds massive Q3 earnings. And other folks saying they're full AI steam ahead. So just a completely mixed bag in terms of the interpretations on NVIDIA earnings. We saw that in the after hours as well. The stock was kind of down, then it was back to unch, then it was down again. Seemed like we were going to be heading for a pretty dark open. And that was the case early on. Vol was getting firmer. S&P back below 5,900, 5,890. Now, as Tosaw has alluded to, we are firmly in the green again. So, we were looking mixed and maybe heading red not that long ago. NASDAQ up about 0.15%. S&P up 0.2%, so over 59.5 again. Again, keep an eye on that. Tosaw did just kill it. And then we got the Dow up 1.3%. Earlier, the Dow was getting annihilated off of the back of NVIDIA as well. So it's one of those weird mixed bag days, listeners. They love the number. They hate the number. They can't make up their mind on the number, and they can't make up their mind on the whole market as a result. VIX was getting frothier this morning. Let's see. How high did we get in ye old VIX cash today? Right about an 18. We kissed it. 17.99. Coming back down off those lofty highs now. We're at 16 3/4 as we kicked off the show. Still up from the Monday show, up a full point. So vol still looking a little firmer from what it was earlier this week. VVIX also at a 102, up about 7 points from this time last week. I was at FIA this week and I had a woman pull me aside who was not at our conference, but is at an adjacent conference. And she saw that we were a, quote unquote, as she put it, a financial and investing conference. And she was just mystified. She could not understand how this market continued to rally with all the geopolitical risk that was going on out there. She wanted to just sell the hell out of everything and put her money in a under the blanket, under the mattress. So kind of interesting to see these different perspectives out there once you get outside the, shall we say, the financial bubble, listeners. But let's go around the horn. Let's get some perspectives. Let's start the way we started. The man who now we can officially say has killed the bull run. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. First off, what do you have to say for yourself? You've now finished it, all the fun for everybody else. And then B, what else is catching your eye out there, sir?
Hey, my track record speaks for itself. We're up roughly 1 point for every minute since I've said that. So I believe we're up 6 points in the last 6 minutes. So, I mean, at this rate, markets should double by the end of the year. So, I mean, what more do you want from me, Mark?
We shall see by the end of the show, even, sir. Watch, the worm shall turn.
We shall see indeed. So, I mean, we have a unique spot in that we have earnings that apparently the market didn't like, because just in looking at some of the stocks that are in the tech sector, Amazon, if you want to consider that tech anymore, even just kind of more of a mainstream type of thing, is down 2% on the day. Google is down 5% on the day. NVDA, although it's been an interesting day in terms of the highs and the lows, NVIDIA, as it stands right now, it's only down 0.5% on the day. So it was up at 152.89 as the high during the trading day, of course, not the after hours market, and it was down as low as 140. Now it's back firmly in the middle at 145. So very interesting movement with NVIDIA today, to say the least. JP Morgan's another name that the market seems to like again. Pulled back from the initial Trump bump, if you will, but now it's coming back. So we're approaching. We were actually over the 245 number for a little bit today. So good news in the banking sector as well. Tesla's having a boring up day today, but Tesla's up on the day today, up 1.4% at 343. So we're getting some interesting reactions, to say the least, within the market itself. Bonds are boring today, like they should be, in my opinion. We just have the 10-year. It's roughly flat on the day, as well as corporates. So not a lot of movement in the 10-year. And then precious metals silver is flat on the day, looking at SLV. Gold's up about 0.8%, looking at GLD. And so today we have a market to where it's like a rebalancing day, kind of, but it's an upward rebalancing day to where the S&P is up 38 points. And so, can't complain about something like that for those of us bulls out there. The thing we got to be aware of is going into the end of the year. As I've said on this show a million times, I'm long-term bullish, short-term cautious. But with where we are right now, I was just on the phone with a client roughly an hour ago. And what do we do with the markets at all-time highs? What do we do with at this stage, to where I don't necessarily want to sell stocks, but I don't want to be the person that didn't sell 6,000, or at least didn't sell 5,900. If for some reason the curse that Mark Longo is putting me on does actually happen, all of a sudden we're at 4,800 in January. What can you do with that? Well, it's not a bad time to look into doing some protective puts on your holdings if you are concerned with the upside or with downside, but you really don't want to get out of it. The way with which to have your cake and eat it too, in my opinion, now don't get me wrong, it costs money to have your cake and eat it too. Those put options aren't free, but index puts on your portfolio might not be a bad idea to consider in a market and a time in history like this.
All right, let's keep on going to the land of Cboe East. He was in and he was out briefly in Chi-Town. Mr. Flowmaster, we can start there if you like. I got a chance to check out your panel, but most of our listeners did not. So if you want to mention any salient takeaways or highlights from the panel, have at it. My own personal highlight was when the moderator, I think he was a guy from Bloomberg, asked about the problems, the hurdles facing listing single name 0DTE, and the woman, I believe she was from a clearing firm, just yelled no at the top of her lungs. I was like, okay, that's one answer, I suppose. But if you have any additional takeaways from the session, have at it. And then B, what's catching your eye and what started out to be a mixed, now looking to green type of day, sir?
The panel, it was a little different, from what I'm used to. It really was not, the one thing about FIA, it's a little bit more varied. It's futures. It's not just, kind of the tunnel vision of listed options that we tend to live in. There was a lot of discussion about clearing and concerns and, just kind of the issues around clearing and, and the 0DTE, it really is a hot topic. And 0DTE on single stocks has has always, well, whatever, for the last, 6 months or a year, where people have been asking for it, when people start digging into the challenges, they're significant, and there's very different views on whether or not this would be a good thing. I just thought it was just really interesting. I talked to the CEO of OCC for a while after the panel. They're talking about doing kind of revamping the intraday, so middle of the day margin, especially for 0DTE, and that's also kind of a bit of a controversial proposal they have out there. So it was nice. It was a beautiful day in Chicago for mid-November. I didn't even have to bring a jacket.
Yeah, you missed it. You took the good weather with you. It is a whiteout now. You literally, outside the studio, you can't even see across the river. There's so much snow coming down today.
It's snowing? Really?
Yes, fiendishly, as we speak. So you took the good weather with you, sir.
Excellent. And then, looking at the market, there's so many things going on. I landed in Chicago, and I believe Ukraine had launched some missiles into Russia. Like, we've seen a lot of, a couple days in a row, there have been these cross-border incursions, which are kind of freaking people out. But then you have a lot of the analysts saying, look, this might just be positioning for what may be a kind of Trump mandated negotiation session. So there's but watching what the futures do during these moments, and it's usually pre-market, you're seeing some pretty solid 0.5% swings, 20, 30, 40 handles pretty quick. And then we also have the new spot Bitcoin ETF options all kind of hit the market this week. So there's craziness happening there. It's just a lot going on.
Yeah, of course, the spot Bitcoin ETF options list the day after my crypto show is recorded. Because what fun would it be if it came right in time for the crypto show? Scott, a lot to sink your teeth into today. As we just mentioned, growing geopolitical risk kind of worrying some folks. Vol maybe firming up a little bit as a result. NVIDIA earnings, were they good? Were they bad? The market's still trying to digest that. The onset of crypto racing towards 100K and Bitcoin. Gensler apparently getting booted out the door early. And now, of course, the hotly anticipated Bitcoin options finally available in our trading accounts. A lot to unpack. What is catching your eye out there this week, Scott?
The answer to that is yes. I think the biggest thing, honestly, is the massive skew, the gamma squeeze that we might potentially see in these crypto stocks. These things are trading very similarly to the meme stocks of yesteryear, AMC, GME, and the like. If you look at the upside out of the money options, the call options in MSTR, in Mara, now in the new ETF that's trading IBIT, other stocks like that, the gamma squeeze that there could possibly be if these stocks do run higher is going to be of epic proportions. These are like animal spirits out here. If you understand it, and if you're a professional and you know how to trade ratios and you can always protect yourself, there is a lot of opportunity. But I will tell you, for the casual trader that maybe doesn't understand the dynamic of gamma squeeze or how some of the Greeks work, yeah, those premium levels, boy, they look so juicy. They look, man, I'm going to pocket, 200% real quickly here. Watch out. Be careful. So that has really got my focus more so than anything. Now that we're past NVIDIA earnings, the geopolitics, yeah, it's out there. I mean, I don't want to minimize it. It's obviously serious things out there. But this is why, Mark, we always talk about you buy your protection when you can and not when you have to. So when the VIX was back down at, 15.5, 16, okay, that's the time, at least based over the last 6 to 9 months or so, that's the time you buy your downside protection, not when the headlines hit of, oh boy, Ukraine just sent missiles into Russia or whatever it might be. So a lot of dynamics happening in this marketplace right now. And just because the election is over, vol is not going away.
Certainly seems to be frosty out there today. Now, you might deduce from that, listeners, and you would be well within your rights to do so, that as a result, also we had a little bit of whipsaw action earlier in the session, starting off the day red. That is usually the recipe, listeners, for a banger day out there in VIX options. And the answer is it a banger day? The answer is unfortunately no. It looks like I had to check this a few times to make sure we weren't having some sort of quote issue because the rest of the market almost quite literally on fire, and VIX looks like it just got out of bed and is kind of rubbing the sleep from his eyes and saying, hey, what did I miss? Because they missed a lot. VIX, as of right now, listeners, only 184,000 contracts on the tape. Again, just the definition of sleepy time out here in VIX. So yeah, a whole lot of nothing. The most active contract, such as it is today, 14,000 of the D's 14 half puts. So there you go. A day when the market started off red. Everyone's digesting NVIDIA earnings. Everyone's dealing with maybe some firming up of vol, maybe all the crypto madness, everything else. VIX can't be bothered to even get out of bed. Now the ADV, it looks even worse when you see the ADV, 918. That ADV has ticked up nearly 100,000 contracts over the last few sessions. So people are slinging VIX options, just not apparently today. It looks even worse when you start to get some of the other index options out. You might assume, okay, maybe VIX is sleepy, then maybe the rest of the index complex is sleepy. And the answer is a resounding no. SPY blowing the doors off right now. I can't remember the last time we saw SPY this hot, this early in the show. Nearly 5.75 million contracts on the tape. That's almost 1.5 million contracts more than we expect this time of day. So lighting the world on fire in SPY right now. The ADV about 7.5 million. And not to be outdone out there, the S saying hold my bear kit over 2.15, about 2.17 million contracts on the tape for the S as well. So closing in on nearly 500,000 contracts more than we expect in the S right now as well. The ADV 3.2 million. They're only about 1 million away from that. They're going to hit that pretty easy out there today. So the rest of the market is on fire. VIX just apparently forgot to get the memo. Small caps, similar deal, on fire. 1.12 million contracts on the tape. They're already almost at their ADV. The ADV is only 1.38. They might get there by the end of this segment, let alone the end of the show. The Qs, man, I can't remember the last time we saw Qs this hot this early. It's been a while, listeners. 3.6 million contracts on the tape. That's almost 1.5 million more than we expect this time of day for the Qs. The ADV is about 4.2 million. They're going to get there probably by the end of the show. So everything else is on fire, almost quite literally, and the VIX just can't even get out of bed. It's a very strange day out there. It makes it even stranger, listeners, when we take the jump to single names. You're saying, okay, maybe it's a quiet single name day. Everyone's fixated on macro. Single names, everybody forgot about. The answer is no. This is one of the most active single name days we've seen in quite some time, if not ever. 456,000 contracts is what it cost you to break into the top 10 today. I can't remember the last time we were this high. It might be the highest we've had. So I'll have to go do some digging into the data to confirm that. But if it's not, it's up there. We very rarely threaten 460 this time of the show to break into the top 10. That gets us to SOFI. Man, look at this, 15, almost 15 and a half, 15.45, up about 3/4 of a buck. This name is up fully 50% over the last month. It was right around $10 heading into Halloween, listeners. So this thing has been on a tear. It wasn't that long ago. It was $5. You go back, not even, about 6 months. Not even. And it was about, it was about $6.50, and not quite $5, but pretty close to it. Man, well, what a tear that one's been on. Number 10 today, 456,000 contracts. Number 9, the fruit company, looking kind of meager in comparison to all the rest out here today. 229.86, up about 87 cents. So not a huge day for them. 534 on the tape, though, so volume-wise looking respectable. Number 8, it's the artist formerly known as Google. A good old Alphabet, off a little bit out here. There we go, 166 and about a third for Class A. Off nearly $10, about 5.5%, so not good. They're taking a little bit on the chin out there today. Looks like their low is about, not quite $3 lower, 163.70, so they are off their lows for the day, but not looking great out there. Good for number 8, 565. So again, kind of leading into what we saw earlier, kind of a bit of a mixed bag to start the day. Number 7, Snowflake, another name that is hot. This name was super hot when it went public. Then it kind of dried up. Everyone moved on to other things. Then it started getting a little hot again. And yeah, I think the definition of hot is this name today. 172 3/4, up 43.5 bucks. I'll have to go run the numbers and see what the earnings straddle was pricing in. I'm going to guess it wasn't $43.5. So, up 33.7% just today. I think the technical term for that is holy crap. Number 7, Snowflake, 575,000 contracts. Number 6, Scott was just talking about it. Mara looking back to the upside. They had just given up the ghost. They were back down. They got back down into the teens again. Yeah, on Monday on our crypto show, they were 18 bucks. And now 25.25 again. So on the rampage, up nearly $4 again just today. Looks like the Bitcoin news, the Gensler news, one of those rising tides that is lifting all the crypto boats. Number 6, Mara, 583,000 contracts. Number 5, good old MicroStrategy, finally pausing a little bit out there. 457.15, off about 16 2/3, about 3.5% out there. Good for number 5, 724,000. So we're already at number 5, nearly 750,000 contracts. You know it's a banger day when we're seeing those kind of volume numbers. Number 4, Amazon, 198 and about a half, off about 4.5, or a little over 2%. So Amazon kind of wearing it still out there today. Good for number 4, 728. Number 3, SMCI. Man, this stay of execution has been good for the stock. Last Friday, it was sub $20, 17.80. Now a tick below $30, 29.98. Up another almost $4.5, or about 17% just today. So SMCI, are they back, or is this just the pause before the ultimate execution? I guess we'll find out. Number 3, by the way, 752. Number 2, it's Tesla, 343.08. What Uncle Mike call it? A boring up day, only up $1 out there today. Good for 1.18 million contracts. And you know who the big dog is today. If NVIDIA wasn't the big dog the day after their own earnings, then something is fundamentally broken at this point. 145.25, off about 2/3 of $1. So again, a rounding error, kind of vacillating right around the middle of that range that it's been bouncing around for the last 24 hours. They thought they liked it, then they didn't like it, then they like it again. It's a weird one out there, but good for nearly 6 million contracts, 5.6 million contracts on the tape out there in NVIDIA land. So yeah, we haven't seen it this hot in quite some time. By the way, if you're wondering what is the big dog in NVIDIA today, I'm going to guess it's probably calls, and that is the case. 298,000 of the Nove doubles. These are expiring tomorrow. So if past is prologue, folks are probably buying those. Looks like about 298,000 of the 150s as well. So it could be a bit of some vertical action out there as well, because they do line up pretty closely. In which case, I think I like it a little bit better, obviously. They might have been selling it, though. I'll have to go look and see. But either way, the Nove 150s and 155s going up about 300,000 times each today, opening on both. So who knows? We could be there in a few minutes, or that could be a distant memory, because Uncle Mike did kill the market, as we recall out there. Listen, let's look at some quick hot names that are popping off this week. Walmart and Lowe's on Tuesday. A lot of big box retail if you weren't into AI this week. We had NEO on Wednesday, so of course, some Chinese EVs. Target, TJ Maxx, some name called Invita, I believe. I believe they're Dutch, as well as Snowflake. We just talked about them. Today we've got, if you want more big box retail, BJ's, and then Intuit and John Deere for a heady mix out there. And you know what, listeners? I do have the numbers in my hot little hands for NVIDIA and also Snowflake. So let's see. Let's start with Snowflake, because we're just talking about how much they are moving. They were expecting 10.8%. So spoiler alert, they were not expecting as much of a move. They're up almost 31% when we ran this report earlier this morning. So yeah, nowhere close to what they were pricing in. Straddle buyers rejoice out there. NVIDIA, very different tune though. They were pricing in 8.1%. And as I mentioned, they're almost literally unched right now, off about 0.25%. They were off about 1.8% earlier this morning. So you had the temerity, the cojones to step in and blast away at some of that vol. You're looking pretty good right now, especially if you've closed it out there. Lost in all this noise, some other names popping off here before the bell today. We had BIDU this morning. They were at 86 3/4 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 5.2%. Looks like they screwed the pooch off 7.2% when we ran this report They were trading 80.5. Let's see where they're hanging out right now, listeners. 81.65. So it looks like they have recovered about $1 and change from that. Still off about 6% on the day. So still outperforming their straddle and probably in the wrong direction for a lot of you folks out here. But yeah, a lot of names popping off. Let's do BJ's really quick as well, because why not? They were before the bell today as well. 85.70. So interestingly enough, BJ's and BIDU trading almost the exact same price, about $1 different going into their announcement. Might be a fun flash poll. Which would you rather have, BIDU or BJ's? Not two names you normally see put together in a pairs trade, which makes it fun. They were pricing in 5.5%. And guess what? BJ's, they don't need your stinking AI. They blew the doors off. 7.7% is where they were trading to the upside when we ran this report. Let's see how it's looking now. Up nearly 10% right now, 9.5%. So BJ's knocking the cover off the ball out there. So again, not a name we talk about a lot, but there we go. Let's do one more popping off before the bell. Another hot name we've been talking about a lot. It's a hot week in earnings, listeners. Pinduoduo before the bell today as well. You know them PDD listeners. 116.5 is where they were trading. They were pricing in about 8.7%. When we ran this report, they were trading exactly 105, so they're down about exactly 10 points. And you know what? They're still pretty much right about there. Or excuse me, 10%. And they're still pretty much right about that level as well, right around 105. So outperforming there as well. So a hot week on the earnings front. If you want to look really quickly what's popping off after the bell today, we've got Intuit, 650.60 is where they were trading when we ran this report. They're pricing in $32, pretty much even. In the past, they've moved 33.85. So a little vol off the top. If past is prologue, maybe not the right way to go, but we shall find out, especially in a name like Intuit these days. Let's go to Sporting Goods, 26 after the bell, so come up next week. This is Dick's, 194.20. They're pricing in $15.5. In the past, they moved about $16.5. So interesting stuff. I'll tell you what, let's do one more here really quickly. They're popping off. Oh, next week. This is Zoom, the former pandemic darling. Looks like they're getting a little bit of a bloom back on the rose. They were 78.86 when we ran this report. Actually trading 81 right now, so they've had a good day already. They're pricing in about $6.5 in their straddle. In the past, they moved 532. So they got the memo that more vol is the winner, at least for right now. In fact, looking at the season, we're hanging out right now at 116%. That compares to our long-term average of 114%. So buying vol certainly carrying the day right now. Every week over 100%. The banger so far this week, week 6, but again, only 21 names reporting so far, so still more to go. But we're at 143% just for this week, so obviously a bit of an outlier this week. And if you want to see all that data for yourselves, you know where to go. TheOptionsInsider.com, the place to go to learn more. As we learn what the Flowmaster has on tap for us this week, it is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, time to get weird, time to get wild, time to see what the Flowmaster fixed his gaze on in between his flights into and out of Chicago, as well as dodging the tomatoes that I was hurling at him throughout the entirety of his panel. It was an impressive performance to be able to stay on task because I was hurling vegetable after vegetable at him on the stage. But let's see what he clawed out for us today. Let's go out. This is a newcomer to the program. I haven't talked about this before. This is Elf Beauty, ticker symbol appropriately enough, ELF, ELF. This is obviously a cosmetics brand, an American cosmetics brand, and trading 122.13, up 313 today, or about 2.6%. So a good day for them out there. Also, a pretty decent year, even if they have had some troubles along the way. A year ago, they were 111, so by basic math, they're up nearly $11 on the year, about $10.5 or nearly 10%. So it's better than being down 10%, that's for sure. But they made a few runs at it earlier this year. They rallied all the way up to what looks like about 221, or pretty darn close to it, back in March. And then they just crushed it right back down in May to about, looks like 153 or so. And then they rallied it again. They took a second tilt right around that 220 level back in late June. And that seemed to be about all she wrote. They kept pretty much selling off ever since then, including a couple of big sell-offs. And they went on August 23rd, they went from about 171 by September 9th, they were 113. So they had crushed it. They were actually lower than they are. In fact, they got down to below $100, $98. So they got cut more than in half from their highs. So to say this is a volatile beauty name is putting it mildly out here. And now it looks like over the last month, as many names have, they've had a good month. In fact, this has been the entirety of their year. They got back almost $10, about $9.20, a little over 8%. And that has pretty much salvaged their year for them. They would be down for the year otherwise. So quite a wild year here. Mr. Flowmaster, what did you spot out here in everyone's new favorite beauty name, Elf?
Yeah, this is definitely a funky one. So I did notice a couple big blocks of open interest created from yesterday's flow. So basically what I saw was 50,000 each of the November 29th, 125, 140 calls were opened. And so then I went to yesterday's flow and I can see a very big spread. The 25,000 lot, November 29th, so that's a week from tomorrow, 125, 140 call spread was bought 10 minutes before the close. Customer paid $2.40. Stock was at 115.70-ish, and that's against a Cboe Theo value of $2.10 on the spread. So they paid a pretty solid amount over our value to buy this thing. And then I went and dug into the day, and looks like it was a pretty wild ride in terms of intraday flow. The stock, I believe, was down almost 20 points midday yesterday. I believe there was like one of these muddy water short reports came out and tanked the stock. I believe it went from about 119 down to about 103, and then it kind of came almost all the way back. And then today it's actually up $2. So these short reports, they're really pretty interesting, and they hit the news every once in a while. I actually had a conversation with a firm that does this one time, and I said, so you trade ahead of these reports. You do the research, you make a trade. They do focus on uncovering scandals or problems. They disclose that completely when they release the research. They say, we have a position in this. But it's still kind of a gray area in terms of sleaziness, I would say. And so in this case, it looks like somebody did not believe it, put on a big position. They're up. I can't price it out really. Even just eyeballing it, I'll bet you that thing's probably worth about $3.50 today on a 25,000 lot. So basically somebody kind of reacting to a big move in the stock, putting on a big trade and not being shy about it.
Not shy at all when you're slinging 25,000. On first blush, 1 week to go, 125, 140. This seems like an insane vertical. But then again, looking at the chart for this year, I think you could say this is an insane beauty name as well. My goodness. If you just took the legend off this and asked me what chart am I looking at, I'd say, it's probably a biotech. It's got all the peaks and troughs, the hills and valleys that you expect from a biotech chart. But nope, it's a mineral-based makeup company. So there you go. Something interesting out there. Mr. Scott, are you a fan of a 1 week to go, 125, 140 vertical in ELF, because somebody loved it yesterday to the tune of 25,000, sir?
That one's a little bit tough for me with 1 week to go, because when you look at the expected move, and there is a lot of volatility in here, the expected move going out 1 week right now is about $11 or so. So if I was bullish, that puts me at a target of like 132, 133. So I think that call spread is really, really aggressive. I would probably do something, a little bit tighter, but obviously this person, and you can see that up there, 50,000 by 50,000. They're looking for a real big outsized move. There's no earnings. Maybe they're looking at Black Friday. Maybe ELF has some big announcements, big deals, whatever it might be, ahead of Black Friday next Friday. But that's a pretty wide one for me. I'm not saying I wouldn't be bullish. I would use some different strikes.
Yeah, that was my first thought too. Oh, earnings must be next week, right? But then I went and looked, you're right, not till February. So yeah, I don't know what they're up to on this. We put it out to our audience. Right now, 100% of our listeners are sellers of this spread. They don't want to buy it. We'll see how those numbers shape up in a little bit as the show progresses. As we keep on rolling out to another name, not traditionally associated with super hot action, but it's been a little tumultuous of late. This is Western Digital Corp, ticker symbol WDC. You know them. They make hard drives, all that fun stuff, listeners. Trading $66 exactly today, listeners. Up a little over $2, or about 3 1/3%. On the year, like we said, it's had some tumult. 46 1/4 a year ago, so they're up nearly $20, or about 42% on the year. So a good year for a hard drive manufacturer, essentially. But they have had some struggles. They rallied all the way up to about $81.50 in July, and then they fell off a cliff, bottoming out, guess when? Right after August 5th, listeners, August 7th. They got down to $46, so cut not quite in half, but pretty darn close. So they came for this name, and ever since then, it's been kind of clawing its way back. So it's been kind of the tale of 2 years out here, really. The first half of the year looking really good. Then they kind of got annihilated, and ever since they've been clawing their way back, and they've done a pretty good job of it over the last few months. Since the August 6th low, they're up about exactly $20. They were $46.07, now $66. So, yeah, a nice little run out here for Western Digital. So again, you don't think hard drives the sexiest or most volatile thing out there, but clearly driving some flow. Mr. Flowmaster, what'd you spot out here in WDC, sir?
Yeah, so this is just a kind of a call buyer that to me looks a little bit aggressive. Just before noon New York time, somebody paid from $1.05 up to about $1.08 for just over 1,000 of the 70 calls that expire on December 13th. So Friday the 13th. These are the 70 strike, and where was the stock at the time? The stock was at 66.01. Stocks lifted a little bit since then. Now we also see some shorter term buyers in the November 29th 63 puts and 66 puts. So in a way, it's just kind of bidding up the vol in WDC. I think it's worth keeping an eye on, though. I mean, vol's kind of in the 30 to 35 to 40 range. I don't know. That call buy caught my eye because it's pretty distinctive. You know, the size. You know, it's not actually the most active name. It only averages about 26,000 contracts a day. It is a pretty call heavy name. The call to put ratio is usually about 2 to 1. So seems to be a bullish play to me. You know, I mean, it's funny. Since the election, you know, it's been kind of a super duper heavy news cycle, right? And a lot of people reallocating and trying to position for what they think the new administration is, how that's going to impact the market. You also have plenty of people talking about valuations being very, very, very high. So, you know, I think there's just a lot of hustling for people to kind of get their portfolios adjusted. You know, I agree with what Mike said, I think, at the beginning in terms of, you know what, it might not be a bad time to look for some hedges out there. You know, VIX at 16-ish is, you know, kind of on the low end. And we're, you know, market's up about 25% year to date. So, you know, for people that might be sitting on gains, you know, if it's that much or even better, maybe it would be kind of wise to own a couple of puts.
Mr. Scott, are you maybe a little bit more down with these Western Digital 70 calls expiring on the 13th? So you got about 3 weeks and change to go. They paid $1.07, so they aren't giving these away. You like these a little better than the Elf Vertical, sir, going out next week?
Yeah, well, a little bit better. You know, expected move is $4.50, $5 going out Western Digital to the 13th. But what I like about these is if you look at the implied volatility in Western Digital, it's actually pretty cheap. So we're not buying expensive premium. Implied vol is down really at kind of the low area here. So, you know, I like those a lot. Preferably or personally, I would spread those off with something, either making it a calendar, a diagonal, maybe even a vertical. But I think those calls, you know, they definitely have some nice life to them.
All right, and there's definitely life in our third name here on the Odd Block this week, listeners. We're actually going to dial the Wayback Machine back a little over a month to October 14th. As you'll recall, listeners, we talked about some upside call action in SOUN AI. The ticker symbol SOUN. I remember we liked him on the show. Looks like some of our listeners liked him as well. We had Matt20 chiming in this week. He's saying he jumped into the SOUN 5.5 calls at 42 cents, which is pretty much exactly what we profiled on the show, listeners. He said then added to the position about a week later for 26 cents. Oh, so they got cut a little bit first. He doubled down. He liked them at about half the price, and now he says they're really paying off now. Took off about 2/3 of the position for, quote, much profit. Well, I like that. Letting the rest house money run. This is definitely a guy who's listening to the show. House money run to see what fun can be found. Oh, throwing a little shade at the end. He said, great show, okay host. Then he put a smiley face in. Just kidding, also great host. Well, thank you, Matt. You are clearly a great listener. You're using our jargon, so you're clearly been listening for a while. Glad to see it's paying off for you. You're right. These look pretty attractive. I liked them at the time. I think I worked a bid. I think they ended up moving away from me, and I never kind of worked it again. So I'm glad to see you were persistent in yours, and they paid off. What are we talking about, listeners? Back on the October 14th show, as Matt20 discovered, and a lot of you, we talked about the no 5.5 calls. Somebody picked up 23,311 of them, lifting the offer for 40 cents. It was about an 80 vol. At the time, the stock was $5.32. And unlike a lot of the other names they're talking about here, they had a reason. Earnings were coming up on the 7th pretty much, so they had extra fuel for the fire. As Matt mentioned, they had a little bit of a fluctuation, and then they ended up closing, though, $6.36 on expiration. So these were all still open. There were actually more. There were a ton more, about 60,000 calls open on expirations. Looks like more folks piled into these, even if the initial folks maybe got out. So if they were still open, they probably made somewhere around 2x on their calls at the end of the day. So not a bad do, as the kids say out there. Mr. Flowmaster, do you recall talking about the SOUN AI, which, by the way, if you just held on to them and kept the stock's $7.03 now, so the stock has continued to rally. Mr. Flowmaster, did you recall these? And what do you think about our listeners diving in and paying off for them, sir?
Well, I don't remember digging into this one, although I'll tell you I have some C3 AI, which is I don't remember why I had it, but that name's also up, like 20-something% in a few weeks. I would say, we definitely kind of jumped into a pretty speculative little microclimate, right? I mean, you see it even just in Bitcoin, right? I mean, I've got it up on a screen here. We're flirting with 98,500 right now. So, that's a good sign of kind of where people are have some money that they want to use for speculative purposes, and kind of what that listener is seeing is like, if you're responsible about it, then a few upside calls in your pocket can be just wonderful, when we get a move like what we've had. So, I think it's one of those examples of like, what you get in terms of owning optionality, owning convexity, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it kind of has a place in many, many people's kind of strategies.
All right. You know what has a place in our show, listeners? It's you folks. Let's get to a real quick mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the all-star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, you folks can't make up your mind on that 125. Oh, just ticked again. You like it again. The 125, 140 call spread in L for $2.40. Right now, 2/3 of you want to buy it. About a third of you want to sell it. Get over there. It's a flash poll, so probably be done by the time this. Actually, we'll make it go for the whole day. That way, you folks listening on the podcast can play along too. We also have our actual question of the week right now, which is Buffett sitting on a pile of cash, about $325 billion and growing. Everyone's asking, rumors are swirling about what the heck he's up to. We gave you 3 choices and the infamous other. Is he waiting for a market pullback? Is he saving for a big acquisition? Or is it time for a big dividend or something else? He's out of ideas. Some wiseacre chiming in this morning saying he's going to take it all with him. That'd be funny. But no, it looks like 76% of you say he's waiting for a market pullback right now. And then 12% say he's saving for a big spend. And the other about 12% say he's out of ideas or other. But I wanted to get to the mail block this week because we actually, if I can dig it up here. Yeah, this came in last week for the Flowmaster. And you weren't on the show with us, sir. So I want to make sure we get to it this week. This question comes from the GOAT. Oh, so the GOAT is asking you a question. Got to take it seriously then. He says, I have a question for the Flowmaster. Well, you sent it into the right show. He says, what's up with VIX futures options? I can't seem to find them on my broker. What's the symbol? Are they doing any volume? And should they be listed alongside traditional options? So a three-parter for you, Mr. Flowmaster. Take it in any order you like, sir.
So the VIX futures options, they are sometimes challenging to find. In fact, in LiveVol, which is our own Cboe platform, the way that I go to see the options is I actually go to the futures first, and then the futures are the underlying for these options. So then I click from say the January VIX futures into see the options on them. The uptake has been slow. This is exactly what he's saying is they're hard to find. These products, there is a whole community of futures traders out there, but they need to actually find these products. So Cboe's marketing it and talking to that community is a little different, right? They tend to be these CTAs and introducing brokers, and it's just a slightly different kind of community. So right now volume is in kind of the I think one day we traded over 800 contracts, but obviously with the VIX options themselves average closer to 800,000. It's very early on in that game. But the other thing that we created, we listed our variance futures, which I suggest if you're interested in it, the math is really interesting because they settle into realized variance. So it's a good exercise to just track it. What was the first question? I forgot. They
just want to say what's the symbol? Are they doing any volume? And he thinks should they be listed alongside traditional VIX options so they're easier to find?
They like technically they are listed alongside. VIX options are, index options are regulated by the SEC. Futures options are regulated by the CFTC. So you actually kind of have some issues there where you can't quite treat them purely as siblings. But good brokers and good platforms really will let you put them side by side. And in fact, a lot of us who traded, say SPX in the day or currently know the arb between the CME, E-mini options and SPX options especially on the quarterlies, which actually are kind of equivalent in pricing terms. And so that's what I've actually been trying to line up and see if things are in line. I assume that they are, and just kind of get comfortable with the the mechanics and the math of the product. I think that the other big thing about the VIX futures options is you can trade dailies. We have 1 day options in the VIX futures options. The options on futures if you go and if you're able to find them. So I do think they're listed on Interactive Brokers. I'm not too sure who else has them.
Yeah, after we got this email, I went and clicked around on some of our platforms as well, and he's not wrong. They are not easy to find. I'll have to try your path of going through the futures first, because you're right. They're not exactly easy to find if you just go straight VIX, listener. So I feel your pain on those as we keep on going and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, listeners, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show we tell you what we're keeping an eye on for the weekend until the Monday episode. And was I right about Uncle Mike's killing the market? Well, kind of not. The S&P kind of about where it was, maybe slightly higher. But VIX kind of firming up to about a 17 now. So Vol's starting to get frothier, which I think is the first sign of the impending doom of the market that was kicked off by Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike, what do you have to say for yourself? Defend yourself on killing the bull run, and then B, what are you keeping an eye on until the Monday show, sir?
Hey, I have no defense to make. My track record speaks for itself. And I'd also like to retire from making such statements. As of right now, I am going out on top, baby.
If that's not the biggest contrarian indicator, I don't know what is. Uncle Mike, he's done. He's done with his never before in the history of the markets is the best time to sell. So there you go.
I am not done with that. That's just an announcement and an observation in terms of saying what I said earlier. I mean, you said that I killed the market. I did not kill the market. So the market is higher since I said what I said. So with that being said, I am retiring from option block 1 hour predictions, even though I didn't know that I even made one as I was making it.
Right,
so,
maybe not killed, maybe mortally wounded the market. How's that?
Well, it's going higher. So if this is mortally wounding, then morally wound us all you want.
But VIX is climbing. That is the blood of the market, and it is flowing, sir.
It's better opportunities to sell puts then, apparently. I wouldn't know because I don't make such predictions anymore. I retired 30 seconds ago.
All right, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until Monday?
So with that, wanting to see if I'm watching precious metals. I want to see if we can, with a kind of base that's been building at the lower levels, seeing if silver can start to make another run again, to see where that's at. Of course, watching the markets to see if we make a run at the 6,017 mark to make the new all-time highs. And as always, watching the bonds as well.
And Mr. Scott, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on for the weekend and into the coming week in the market, sir?
You know, I'm gonna stick to these crypto-related stocks and look to see if any of this skew kind of normalizes a little bit, because I think there's just a really, really massive opportunity there. And then also some of the small caps and really the Russell and in IWM, you know, kind of took it on the chin over the last week or so, making a little run back today. So I think that there's definitely some opportunity. Love the volatility. Love the fact that, you know, we are still seeing vol running into the holiday, though I would bet early next week we start seeing vol come off a little bit because no trade Thursday, half a day Friday.
And Mr. Flowmaster, what are you keeping an eye on for the coming week, sir?
I agree. Watching crypto, right? Because it just has it's a moment, right? We are gonna hit 100,000, and it feels to me like, you know, when the Dow goes through big numbers, right? Dow 40,000. So, you know, Bitcoin 100,000. People are gonna talk about whether in 5 years it's $1 million or it's $100. That is a specific moment, and then, you know, we because we've listed all these spot Bitcoin ETFs options on those. I'm watching all of them, basically trying to do a little bit like what Scott's talking about, kind of check the vol levels, check the skew levels, look to see, the IBIT is the most active so far of the 6 or 7 that have options listed on them. But, you know, these are all really, really comparable instruments, right? So, whenever you see kind of a little ecosystem like that, it's really interesting, right? And so that's, you know, looking for opportunities, looking for where is the best place to buy if you want to be a buyer, or sell if you're going to be a seller. And I agree, looking for some of these spread opportunities when you have these insanely high wings. There's some things to do there.
Looking at IBIT right now as we're talking, if you want to play in the weeklies, listeners, the strikes only go up to 59.5. So they better start adding some more strikes. It's at 56.10 right now. So it could be in the money by tomorrow at this rate. But intriguing stuff. Unfortunately, that music means we are out of intriguing stuff for this episode. But don't worry, if you want more intriguing stuff in your lives, I'll be back in a little bit talking all things futures options with our good pal, Mr. Dan the Man Graham. So stay tuned for that. Always a good time when he and I are talking about futures options. And Mr. Scott, you did another able job in the guest chair, sir. If folks want to check out what you have cooking, maybe talk about some of these verticals you're talking about here, or maybe some of these crypto trades, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
prospertrading.com. prospertrading.com. You can find us there, our YouTube page, all sorts of education and live instruction.
There you go, listeners. Check them out over there. Mr. Uncle Mike, where should they go if they want to check out more, or maybe point the finger at you for killing this bull market, which you clearly have done?
No doubt. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Tosaw, Tosaw. I try to put out a lot of content. Check out my website if you're looking for a financial advisor who's not afraid to say, hey, you might want to buy some protection at these levels. stcharleswealth.com.
And Mr. Flowmaster, last but not least, if they want to go digging into some skew charts over there on the live vol or play around, check out the brand new spiffy coat of paint on Trade Alert. Where should they go? What should they do?
Just head to Cboe.com/RMA, which stands for Risk and Market Analytics, and we'd be happy to set you up with a trial and Show you the magic.
Show you the magic. Like it. New tagline. See the magic for yourselves, listeners. Cboe.com/RMA, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Got to get on out of here, but don't worry, back in a little bit with our good pal, Mr. Gramza. Then back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. I do believe Dr. Vix will be back on the show. Should be a fun time tomorrow, holding court on all things Vol. And spoiler alert, there's a heck of a lot to talk about this week, so we'll get into that. And if that's not enough for you, come back one final time for the week. The Options Oddities program coming up after Vol Views. I'll be joined by our good pal, the options guy himself, Mr. Brian Overby, to hold court on a whole bunch of weird and wild trades. If you like the odd block, it's like the odd block on steroids, turned up to 11, Spinal Tap style. You can get that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Then we're all off for the weekend, mercifully. Then we're back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.